You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Fly fishing is more than just a pastime. It is a soulful journey that invites us to reconnect with nature, embrace the art of patience, and celebrate the delicate balance of life. Each cast of the line becomes a testament to one's dedication as we learn to read the water and understand the rhythms of the fish beneath the surface. Fly fishing is a dance between angler and environment, with the thrill of the catch being the cherry on the top of an ice cream sundae. On May 5th, 2023, Steve Acosta was guiding his brother Simon for Steelhead on the Feather River in Northern California. What began as a promising day of driftboat fishing quickly turned tragic when Steve's boat was swept into a massive sycamore tree. The sudden snag caused the boat to lurch forward violently, throwing the brothers from the boat into the heavy current. With no life jackets on, their odds of survival were slim. Can you tell us what happened that day, Steve?
So Oroville, California is located, it's an hour from Sacramento. Okay. And what makes Oroville special is it has the Oroville Dam, and which is the largest man-made dam. It's 770 feet high. And that particular year was a high water year, and so when that dam fills up, they start releasing lots of water. Okay. So the Feather River comes out of the Oroville Dam is where I guide and where I put in my drift boat and fish. And that particular day was Cinco de Mayo. I had not been on the river for 2 weeks because the water was so high, and I was just bored. And I think when you're bored, that's not really a good thing because you'll do things that you wouldn't normally do. So it was me and my older brother, Simon, and we went out. It was an overcast day. I was feeling a little under the weather. I wasn't like sick, but I just felt a little, didn't have the adrenaline like I normally do, And so picked my brother up, we put in the boat, and we're fishing. Pretty good day. We're getting some fish. And then, you know how brothers are. So for some reason, we had a disagreement, right? And I'm just kind of annoyed with him at this point, and I just kind of want to get off the water. I'm thinking, I'm rowing you around all day, and you're kind of bugging me. So anyway, so we're moving on down the river, and there's this one section of river, they call it Steep Riffle, and if you've ever been on a river, it can change. It can go real calm, and then all of a sudden it gets kind of fast. Well, there's a tree that sits in the middle, right? So you gotta, you let the boat in, and you're pointing your boat towards the bank because that's where it wants to push you, and you're back rowing, and you got to back row real hard to get underneath the tree, okay? And this tree every year is getting lower and lower and lower, right, to the point to where you're having to duck as you get under. So it's a big sycamore tree. And that particular year, it was a high water year, so the flows. Normal flows are about 1,000 CFS, cubic feet per second. Okay. That's average. They were about 3,000, so a little bit higher. It was running kind of fast. Yep. And that particular run, it created, when you have high water, the river changes. It's just a whole new river. So instead of going underneath the tree, it had a channel on the left side, and it was a really small channel to get through. And I had gone through it before and got my oar stuck in the berry bushes a little bit, but got through it, right? This time I thought I would kind of go through it again because it was kind of a shortcut. And my oar, I kind of went a little bit to the right, and most of the current of the water just was going under the tree. And then my boat just got pinned basically on the base of this huge, massive sycamore tree. And so the boat was pinned. I go over. I'm in the water. I'm thinking, oh shit, this just happened, like, you know, and this is a run to where, you know that it could be dangerous, but you never think of failing. And I guess, sometimes you get overconfident doing something over and over and over. And sometimes you push the envelope. And this particular day, that's what happened. And so now I'm in the water. So I'm in the water and I'm thinking, okay, wow, this just happened. And on the other side of the tree, right? So it kind of drops, it goes 3 feet and it drops into about 15 feet. And it's just like these big turbulence, these big back eddies, right? Hydraulics. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to regain my bearings and try to water tread through this, because I had my boots on. So I'm thinking, no, and here's the thing, no life jacket. I had it in the boat, but I wasn't wearing it. Neither was my brother. And I know, stupid, right? But there's a lot of guys out there who might be listening, that are on the river. Every guided trip I've ever gone on, they're not wearing life jackets. It's just one of those things you get comfortable. You don't think it's going to happen. And then when it happens, you're not wearing a life jacket. Okay. So anyways, I'm in the water and I'm thinking, okay, my next move is I got to, get ready for the big turbulent water coming. Well, but I never got to that point. As I went underneath, this big sycamore tree, it's got big, what they call hangers. They got these big, massive roots that are underneath it. So as I'm underneath the water, it was really weird. I see, it's funny what you would see, as things were floating by. Like there's my red pea bottle. Okay, that's floating by. Oh, there's my Simps fly box with $500 worth of flies. Okay, that's gone. Ugh. And then next thing you know, I'm pinned under the water. I get stuck. What had happened was this 3 foot by maybe 12 inches diameter got stuck underneath my vest I was wearing. And I'm pinned under the water completely. Like I can't get out. And at that point, I'm like, shit, I'm in trouble. Like I'm in real trouble. And I couldn't get out of it. And, I'm 3 feet under the water and I'm stuck under here. And it was crazy because what had happened all of a sudden, everything is slow motion. And I'm having this conversation like, you dumbass, like, what did you just do? Like, this is how you're going to go, like the thing that you love. This is how you're going to go. Because, you always kind of ask yourself, I wonder how I'm going to go,
Yep.
But so now I'm realizing like, this is how I'm going to go. Because I just can't get out of it. 3,000 CFS, that's a lot of pressure. And you just, you're not getting out of this. So I thought, okay, well, it's either going to be fight or flight. And I was at peace, I really was. It slowed down. And the crazy thing is I'm having this conversation. I'm underwater the whole time. So like, I'm not gasping for air. It was like everything slows down and you're having this conversation. I can see clear. I'm looking just like 2 feet under the water. I could see the sun kind of, going through the clouds. And I'm like, okay, this is it. I have, I'm a believer, I have faith in God. And so I wasn't crying out to God. I knew that, where I was going to go, I'm going to go to heaven, I'm going to die, and that's going to be it. Right.
Yep.
But all of a sudden you start thinking I thought of my family, right? I thought of my wife, my 2 girls. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, you're not going out this way. Not today. And I just started flailing, kicking, everything I can to break loose. And next thing you know, I come loose. I pop up like a bobber. I'm like, I'm good. Like, shit, this is great. I just, and at that point, I'm like, okay, now you got to go that was part A. Now part B is getting through this big turbulent water, right? I got no life jacket on. I got boots that are filled up. I'm like, okay, you got to get ready for this. You got past this, you can do this. Well, on the boat, I have a cooler, right? And it's an Arctic cooler. It's a soft pack 20, 20 soft pack.
Yep.
And next thing you know, as I pop up, there it is waiting for me. It was just amazing. It's been waiting for me. Like an angel just said, "Here, grab onto this." I mean, it was like, oh, great. I was so happy to see it. This was the crazy thing now. I never open that cooler. It's always, warm, so you want to keep it cool. And anybody who's owned the Arctic out there, I mean, this probably isn't good for advertising, but they're real stiff. The zippers are really stiff. And so it takes a lot to open it up. So as it's there, I'm like, okay, great. The lid was open. It like popped open, and I had some waters and I had some beer in there, and I hadn't drinking any beer. But they were popping out of the cooler, like weird. Okay, fine, whatever. But these things, the drinks are popping out of the cooler, and I grab onto it, and that was my floating device. And I was happy, and I'm floating through the deepest part of the river. I'm like, I got this. This is good, right? And now I'm thinking, okay, where's my brother? Like, oh shit! Like I'm yelling for him, and I'm probably about 40 yards downriver, and I don't have my glasses on, and I'm just yelling for my brother to see if he's where he's at, and I can't hear him, I can't see him, and I'm thinking, oh man, I just killed my brother. My heart sunk. It was a terrible feeling, the worst feeling. You went from like, excitement to you're alive to like, oh man, maybe I should have died too, And so this is going through my head, and I'm just like, it's the worst feeling. I mean, I wouldn't put that on anybody, So then I'm floating downriver, and I finally reach the bank. I'm about 60 yards downriver. I climb up to the bank, and I'm yelling for my brother, right? And lo and behold, he's on the base of the tree waving, right? He's yelling for me as well. So, he was feeling the same thing. Like, where's my little brother at? He's gone down, and I don't see him. So he was pretty scared as well. So, at this point, the boat's, it's pinned, and I'm alive, he's alive, and just a sense of, like, oh man. And, I kind of fell to my knees, and I remember, crying and thanking God, because it's like, I'm alive, my brother's alive. And, I remember, yelling, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he's waving, and so I said, okay, great. Now here's the crazy thing. So now my brother's stuck. Okay. He can't, so what happened with him was, his story was, the boat went over, he was hanging on the side of the boat, right? And he had to decide to hold on, and till he just couldn't hold anymore, and he let go. And he let go, and he got swept under the boat and just grabbed onto the base of the tree. Otherwise, he'd have been kind of in my situation. Yeah. So he climbs up, and he's on the base of the tree, but he can't, he's stuck there, right? Water's too deep. He can't swim, across. So he's kind of stuck there. So I'm thinking, oh man. And he has his phone, and amazingly, he's able to call 911. Now, the Feather River is like 15 miles long, and he doesn't know exactly where he's at. I mean, a lot of the riffles and runs have nicknames and stuff, but he did not know where he was at. So he calls, Butte County Sheriff 911, and, tells them, hey, me and my brother, the boat's capsized. I'm stuck over here. And when you know it, what we think the chances are that Butte County Sheriff is 2 miles downriver. They're doing search and rescue. They're practicing that. And they had a helicopter.
Wow.
And they had a jet boat. Like, what is it? All the stars were aligned, right? And he's like, hey, they're downriver. Look for a helicopter, right? So I'm like, okay. Next thing you know, 10 minutes later, I see this big blue helicopter, and I'm waving, and they kind of passed me 2 or 3 times. And they're like, oh, man, I'm right here. I'm right here. They didn't see me till the third time they passed, and then it looked like they got a visual on me. And then they kind of came down, and then the paramedics showed up, and, I said, I'm okay. I'm good. And I said, my brother's over there. And they're like, okay, great. This is to be a good training, And so the helicopter came down, and they got my brother, and they put him, they like a harness around him, right? And he's just holding on for dear life, and he's like 125 feet in the air, and so he got carted off onto the bank. And it's funny because he doesn't like heights, so he got the ride of his life. But at that point, and so he tells me, he goes, you're telling Mom about this. I'm like, good, I'll tell Mom. I don't care. I was happy he was alive. So then the paramedics and then the Butte County Sheriff, they said, hey, man, you guys are good. We're good. We'll, took down a report, and then we'll get back to you, later. So then I called my friend, and I said, hey, this is what happened. I don't have my keys. Can you come get me? So he came down. My friend Brian, good friend. He drives me, takes me to my house. I have to crawl through the window to get into the house. And he goes, you good? I said, yeah, I'm good. So he gave me a cell phone so I could call my wife, and let people know what was happening. And then that night, I got a knock on the door about 10:30 at night. And, word gets out. It's a small town.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And so word gets out fast. And I was pretty embarrassed, to tell you the truth. When you wreck, you're thinking, a lot of things go through your mind. You're thinking, what, everybody's going to think I'm a hack. I guide, and like, who wants to go out with that guy? My guiding is over. I was really taking it, kind of beating myself up a little bit, kind of hard on myself. And I thought, this is a bad thing. So I'm kind of in hiding, and get a knock on the door, and it's my friend Rob, big country boy. Steve, I heard your boat. I heard your boat capsized. We're going to try to get it in the morning. Get some rest. I'll pick you up in the morning. Okay, see ya. Like, okay, great. Okay. Because, I really didn't want my boat. I wanted to get my boat out, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's embarrassing. You just don't want your boat there. I felt bad for the boat, too, to tell you the truth. I really felt bad. It was by itself and just taking on water. And so the next morning, he picks me up. We go in his boat, and there was a hole in the boat, and there was nothing we can really do to get it. The water was just too high. He brought chainsaws, and he went that boat to the bank.
Okay.
And then he said, hey, water comes down, we'll get it. And then I was like 4 days later, I get a phone call. And he's, hey, Steve, it's Rob here. I got your boat. Him and this other guy, they picked up the boat physically, put it on their drift boat crossways, and then took it to the bank, to the takeout.
Oh, awesome.
And so I went, yeah. So, props for him. And I thought, okay, this is great. People are helping you. And I thought, well, I think my guiding days are over. I don't want to get in the boat. You're kind of shell-shocked at that point, right? Yeah. You're thinking, I don't want to get in the boat anymore. I'm done, right? And then a couple guys, were calling me, other guides, and they were telling me their story. They're like, what? I almost died doing this. And so, I wasn't the only one that had gotten in trouble, on a boat before, and so I didn't feel a little bit better, but I still didn't want to, I took my placards off my truck, that was advertising for the fly fishing company. And I just didn't want to, I was just in hiding. Right. And, my daughter calls me and she knows how hard I've been working on this, she works on the website, and I was doing this part time for 9 years, trying to make it happen. It's finally kind of happening, and she says, "Well, Dad, are you gonna go out on any trips?" And I said, "What?" I said, "Trips?" I think, who wants to go out with me? Right? It's like, I don't think so. And my little girl, she's I have two great daughters, by the way, and Belen is kind of a toughie. She's really mentally tough, and she says, "Dad, I know you're disappointed, and I know you're but she says, you worked really hard on where you're at, and she says, I want you to go into your room, put on your big boy pants, go outside, and put your magnets, your placards back on your truck." She says, "Your last name's Acosta. You need to start acting like it." So, I needed a little kick in the pants, and 2 weeks later, I was back on the boat, and had to go through that run again, right? So that was pretty nerve wracking to try to go through it again, and it's one of those things that keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go out tomorrow. We're going to do this. I have to do this, and so I did it. And after I did it, I was cussing at the tree. I don't know if that helped anything, but and from that point on, it's just, I wear my life jacket now. When I go there, I make other people wear their life jackets mandatory, and they actually took out the tree as well.
Oh,
it
right.
was becoming such a problem that other people were kayakers were flipping it, and so they got a big loader and they took out this tree, and it's there now on the bank. And so it's a reminder every time I go through there, your adrenaline gets pumping a little bit, and you're like, okay, you can do this. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so that's what happened, and I think every day, you get when you get a second chance at life, you just you take advantage of it, and you're thankful, you're grateful. I don't let the little things bother me anymore. I get to be with my wife, my beautiful wife, and my two beautiful daughters, and my little pit bull that I love so much, and I get the second chance at life. So I make the most of it. So I just want to, at this point, I just want to try to impact people as much as I can. And, even though the story is kind of embarrassing, but, if there's anything that can be learned from it, it's, when there's high water, maybe, for example, maybe I didn't need to go out that day, but I was bored. Human nature when you're bored, right?
Yep.
And, I wasn't wearing my life jacket, and I took a shortcut. So there's a lot of things that went on that could have avoided, this from happening. But that's kind of what happened. And like I said, I'm just grateful to be alive, and, every day is a blessing and a gift.
So I want to ask you a question. So your boat, did you end up repairing that boat, or did you end up getting a different boat?
I did. So, and here's another thing too. So a lot of guys, boat insurance, it's pretty cheap.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's only like $150 annually.
Yep.
And I think it was deductible was $500, and I got $10,000 out of it. And what I did was I repaired the boat, because I just I could sell the boat. A lot of guys were telling me, "Hey man, that's bad luck." I'm like, no, that wasn't the boat's fault. It's my fault. So it basically got a new bottom. It's a Stealthcraft boat. Stealthcraft is made. It's a fiberglass boat. It's a boat company out of Baldwin, Michigan.
Yep.
And they're solid boats. Yeah, Mike from Stealthcraft. Little shout out to Mike. But anyways, he happened to be in California, and so he took the boat. He took the boat, and then I got it back a couple months later, like a new boat.
Awesome.
So yeah, I did repair. So you always want to have boat insurance.
Yep, that's important.
You never know.
Yeah, and you probably had so many good memories in that boat, and it was hard to try to give something like that up. It's almost like a family member at that point.
Exactly.
So how many years are you guiding on the river, Steve?
Yeah, so this is my ninth season. And it's it's not a full-time job. I worked at Santa Clara County as a tile setter for like 15 years, and then another 12 years at road construction. And what I would do is on my time off, I would travel to Paradise, California, and then the river's like 25 minutes away. And then so I would guide part-time seasonally, right?
Yep.
October, and then maybe, a couple of months in the spring. So I've been doing that 9 years now.
And you're mainly fishing for steelhead, correct?
Yeah. So the Feather River, it's a
fly fishing for steelhead.
Yes, we're fly fishing for steelhead. And there's a hatchery in town. So you have a run of Chinook salmon that come in, and then you have the steelhead that come behind them. And they come in, in the winter, the fall, and then summer. And on a fly rod, you get to hook into these steelhead, and they're Central Valley steelhead. They're not the big coastal fish, but on a 6-weight, nice 24-inch fish, on a 6-weight is a good deal. They fight hard too, For those of you who don't know, a steelhead, it's a sea run trout. It's a trout, but it's a sea run trout. So I always tell my clients, I go, these steelhead, they're kind of like the Navy SEALs of the trout, They're badasses. I mean, they go into the ocean,
yep.
They run the gamut, and then they come back and spawn, and then go back, and they go back and forth until they die. So yes, I love steelhead. They're just my favorite fish.
Yeah, they're beautiful, for sure.
They are.
So when this accident happened, I mean, how many miles were you from, like, the boat landing where you put in?
Mm-hmm. So there's 3 sections of river on the Feather, right? So there's what they call the low flow, and it's right there in town, Oroville, Riverbend Park, and then it's about roughly 6 miles to the first takeout, and then about 6 miles. And I was probably 4 miles into it from the takeout. So the rescue team was just a couple miles downriver.
Okay. I mean, Is there actual, like, you see when you go out west, you see different rivers and they have rapids in them, and there's different classes. Were there actual, like, rapids in this river, or is it just a really fast flow?
Yeah, no, it's not a crazy river, but when the water's up, this particular one could be a little challenging, some guys will just walk their boats through, but there's always that part of you, like, I can.
What do you mean by walk your boat through?
So you could put a rope on the back of the bow, and then in the front of the bow and in the back, and then you could kind of have a rope, kind of like a triangle.
Okay.
And you can just kind of put the boat in the water, and then you walk on the skinny part, the ripple part of the water, and just kind of walk it through. So it's like these riffles, and then it turns into this fast, deep water. Okay. Right. And so you could walk it through, but, I never do.
I mean, that day, was the water too high to even attempt something like that?
Maybe a little bit, like I said, I've been out before at that, height, and never had an issue. But, all it takes is one mistake, and that was like the wrong ripple to do it in, because the way that it was, there was a tree in the middle, there's deep water behind it, it just will suck you down. So, I probably, hindsight, I should have stayed home. I should have stayed home.
There was a lot of different factors in play that day, I think.
Yeah.
And definitely someone was looking out for you. I mean, look at the, like you said, when you're explaining about the cooler, all of a sudden magically pops up right there out of nowhere, right after you pop out of the water. I mean, and the same thing about getting out of when you're caught in the root ball down below, and definitely, obviously it wasn't your day.
No.
God had bigger plans for you and wanted you to, and part of that, maybe it's to come on podcast and tell your story and others to hear your story and learn from that. I've had multiple people on, about different water scenarios. And the number one thing I always hammer home is wearing a life jacket. Like, that's the most important. If you have a life jacket on, man, your chance of drowning is like, I mean, it could still happen. You could still hit your head and go face first down, but like, life jackets are a huge lifesaver. And there's so many different types. Like, I wear a vest, the ones that, they inflate when they hit the water, when they submerge in the water. Right. And then it has an actual backup safety on it that where you can manually pull the CO2 cartridge. And even if that fails, you can blow it up like a balloon. There's a little stem on there and you could actually physically blow it up. So because I'm like you, I hate when I'm fishing, I don't want something cumbersome on me. Like I'm there to relax and fish. And it feels like when I got a life jacket on, a big bulky, I can't, it's not relaxing and I can't get, it's just the feel is different and it's just like it's cumbersome. It's in the way.
Right. I have those ones as well. And, they didn't do any good in the confinement,
No, they don't.
And you'll be surprised how, like I said earlier, a lot of these trips you go on, very rarely they tell you to put on a life jacket. It's kind of optional or they don't ask. And, a lot of times you take out, a lot of my clients are in their 70s, right?
Yep.
And they lose their balance, and sometimes, and I've had them fall over, or let's just say they have a stroke or whatever, at least if they got a life jacket on, So yeah, that's a mandatory thing now. It was a rough lesson to learn. And I definitely, life jackets, they're like seatbelts, life jackets. And, there was, like you're saying, nobody wants, when it's really hot out, nobody wants to wear a big, bulky life jacket. So it's good to invest in those smaller ones like we have, and they're not that bad.
No, my wife bought me one like 20 years ago because I was like you, man, I just hate wearing these things, so I don't want to do it. And I'm not a great swimmer, I could doggy paddle for maybe 50 yards, but other than that, and in fact, I have a podcast where I explain my poor swimming, and I myself almost drowned trying to save a dog, not thinking that, hey, a dog could swim. But yeah, you have to listen to that one, or any of the people out there want to listen to it.
Unfortunately, so Oroville, on the Feather River, it's a very unique water system because you have water coming from the dam. Then you also have water coming through these big cement flumes, and it goes into an after bay. Okay.
Yep.
So where I take out the 6 miles, you take out River Bend Park, it's called Thermalito After Bay. And then that's called the high flow. Well, that water comes in from that after bay, and then it goes out what we would call the high flow. Well, it's a big, huge bay. And just last week, two young brothers, they were duck hunting in kayaks, no life jackets. And they went over, and they both died, unfortunately. The older brother, or one of the brothers, tried to save the other one, and they both went in, and they just found one, and one is still missing. So, just really close to home, and over no life jacket, No,
it's horrible.
Really sad.
Yeah, that's what I think, call things accidents. I don't care how many years you've been doing something. Sometimes, you get complacent. And you're like, oh, I've done this 1,000,000 times. It's never going to happen to me until it does.
You're right. And and this happens in people that ski, people that they climb rocks, right? You get a little confidence. You've done it 100 times. And you don't think of failing. That, I never thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to fail. I've come close. I've hit the edge a couple times, but you just don't think about what's down there, what's underneath there, And you get complacent, you get a little overconfidence, and I'm pushing 60, so I'm not a I'm not a spring chicken, and there's going to come a point in time where I'm going to be like, you know what, you shouldn't be going down this rapid because it takes a lot of energy and strength to slow the boat down to get in position. When you're in a drift boat, you're using the oars,
Yep.
and if, let's just say your arm slipped going down and now your boat's going sideways and it pins up against it can happen so fast. So there's going to come a point in time, and I know that my days of rowing down that particular riffle is going to be over.
Well, hopefully that's a long time down the road.
Not worth it. But there's other parts of the river.
Yep.
I don't have to be on that part of it. Yeah. But you were talking about earlier. Yeah. My faith. It was like, wow. In the morning, I'm grateful, and I'm talking to God. I'm like, yeah, okay, another day. Like, what's my purpose? What is my purpose? And that's what, as I get older now, it's like, you want to make a difference in life, right? You want to leave this earth a better place than you found it.
Yep.
That's what I try and teach my kids. But so there's a reason why I'm here, and I'm just, looking forward to, finding out, what's the rest of the story going to be,
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoy listening to other stories, and I tip my hat to all the guys that are out there. I listen to your story, and I'm like, wow, yeah. So I'm getting mauled by a bear or the avalanche. That's and all that. So yeah, I appreciate your podcast. I really like it.
Thank you. I've had multiple podcasts on the topic of water safety, and I will continue to do so. The incident involving Steve and his brother Simon serves as a stark reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in an unpredictable environment. Each year, thousands of individuals find themselves in perilous situations on the water, with drowning statistics revealing that approximately 4,000 people lose their lives due to unintentional drowning incidents in the United States alone. A significant portion of these tragedies could be prevented by simply wearing life jackets. In fact, the United States Coast Guard reports that 85% of drowning victims were not wearing a life jacket at the time of the accident. Life jackets are designed to keep you afloat and provide critical buoyancy even if you become unconscious. They're not just an accessory, they're a life-saving tool that can make all the difference between life and death in an emergency situation. So whether you're out on a drift boat or other watercraft, always prioritize your safety by wearing a properly fitted life jacket and ensuring that everyone else on board does the same. And remember to stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.